Amanit Ahimsa Kshantirarjavam Acharyopasanam Shaucham Sthairyamatma Vinigraha Indriyarteshu Vairagyam Anahankara Yevacha Janma Mrityujara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam Asaktirana Vishwangaha Putradara Grihadishu Nityam Chasamachittatvam Ishtanishtopapatishu Mayicha Ananya Yogena Bhaktiravya Vicharini Vivikta Desha Sevitvam Aratirjana Samsadi Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam Tattva Jnana Artha Darshanam Etad Jnanamiti Proktam Ajnanam Yadatonyata. The values in whose presence this knowledge is possible, and again the fruits of the knowledge can be enjoyed. As I said here, what I want to be and is not different from what I want to gain in terms of knowledge. And therefore, this is the peculiarity of this knowledge. Because of this peculiarity, the mind should enjoy a certain degree of relative quietude. It should be an abiding mind. What is an abiding mind? He tells, these are the things. If these values are there, the mind will be an abiding one. There will be freedom from reactions. And it is such a mind that can enjoy the fruits of this knowledge and also can gain the knowledge. If it gains the knowledge because of certain other capacities, well, it doesn't enjoy the fruits of knowledge. And therefore, to enjoy the fruits of knowledge, to free that knowledge from obstacles, if the knowledge has to prove itself to be a blessing, then that knowledge must necessarily be supported by an antakarana, a mind that enjoys these values. The values have been already said, amanitvam, adambitvam, ahimsa, kshantihi. So these are the values. One I omitted in that, anahankaraha. So, indriyarteshu vairagyam, anahankaraha, janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha doshanu darshanam. In this, anahankaraha. Ahankara is aham karomi iti bhavaha. Ahankaraha. Anahankara is absence of doership. Absence of doership. When I perform actions and I recognize freedom from ahankara or pride. That also we can say, or egoity. Freedom from absence of doership. In the sense, I am the doer. I am the sole doer of this action. So this kind of arrogance, the one who doesn't have absence of arrogance, self-arrogance, that is anahankaraha. Because to do an action is itself a blessing. That I can do an action is a blessing. I recognize the blessing, and thereby this ahankara drops off. And the ahankara completely drops off only when I appreciate the truth of myself, the self being actionlessness itself. The self, the I awareness, never performs any action. Actions take place in its presence. The buddhi, the intellect becomes a functionary. The mind performs its action, its function. The sense organs, they do their function. And all these functions are possible because of which awareness itself doesn't perform any action. nor it causes them to act. It has no will there. And therefore its presence is necessary for the intellect to be an intellect. And therefore itself, I, the awareness, never performs any action. It is actionlessness itself. And therefore if anybody wants to give up action in order to have Vishranti, relaxation, and that fellow takes himself to be an actor and then wants to free himself from action. That is another problem. In fact, he is not an actor. I am not an actor. Therefore, actionlessness is my nature. Commit the mistake of taking myself to be an actor, and thereafter I crave for a freedom from this action. Therefore, action itself belongs to only the buddhi, the complex, such as the body, mind, intellect complex. To that alone the actions belong, and therefore I awareness is free from all actions. And hence anahankara becomes natural, but till then he appreciates the blessing that he enjoys, because that I can think, that I can do, is because of I am provided with these faculties, and therefore the more I see this blessing that it is given to me, the more easy for me to give up this, to keep away the ahankara. And then Bhagavan says, asakti ranabhishwangaha puttradara grihadishu ishtamcha ishtanishtopapatishu nityam samachittatvam. So this also was seen. Nityam samachittatvam karma yoga. So enjoying an equanimous mind, a mind that is always the same. So when the desirable result comes, or the undesirable one comes, he has got the sameness of mind, and that is called, because of, he receives the result as something that is given to me as the prasada from the Lord. Because it is given to me to act, the result is always taken care of. The result is taken care of by the laws of the Lord. The laws of the Lord are the hands of the Lord. And therefore, I take, there is an attitude. It is just an attitude. Because of this attitude, I am able to receive the results of action as they come. Agate swagatam kriyat, gachantam nanivarayet. So as the things come, he with open arms, he receives them. And therefore the mind is always at peace, and it doesn't react. There is no reaction on his part. It is called karma yoga, in fact. It's a yoga of attitude with reference to action and results. And again, about this karma yoga, one more fact I can tell. In the society that is conceived by the Gita, well, each individual is bound by duties, not by rights. So if duties are conceived very clearly, if each one has got only duties, no rights to claim, thus the other one's right becomes suppose I'm the father, then the duties become the rights of my children. The children's duties become the rights of the parents. And thereby there is no fight, because the right is not there. If the duty is there, everyone makes an attempt to perform his duty. So it addresses itself to the society which has got this concept of duty. If the duty concept is there, then karma yoga becomes still more pronounced, in the sense that I have got certain duties. I perform the duties, not that I don't expect the results of action. I do expect the results of action, but they are my duties. So with reference to my duty, as duties I perform them, because as I even perform them, I forget the very action in as much as I have done my duty. I have done my best. So with that, this man is happy. In doing the action, he is happy because they are his duties. So if he has got, besides the duties, if he has got certain personal interests, he wants to invest some money and make some money, so there comes prasada. There naturally it is a kamya karma. So whenever there is a kamya karma, a desire prompted action, so this I am doing it for this sake, sir, this result has to come. That's when he performs such actions. So meant only not as duty, it is a duty towards himself. For his own profit is a duty. If that is the duty for himself, then in those actions, well, he must have this prasada buddhi. Whatever that comes, he should take it. As they come, he should take them gladly, happily, because what I deserve, I always get. And again, it is given to me by the Lord. Unless the Lord is recognized as a karma phala data, any amount of this telling about this attitude, it doesn't happen. Attitude is always natural. It has to be born. A man who wants to marry a girl, tomorrow is the marriage. On the eve of the day, the fellow is talking to her and discovers that this girl was one who was lost some years before, some 18 years before, in a Kumbh Mela. In a big Mela means a fair. So in a fair at Allahabad, this child was lost. In a big fair it was lost. Afterwards they could not find the child. Somebody brought up the child. And this girl grew up in Delhi. And then this boy went to Delhi, boy meeting the girl, you know the stories. And then he decided to marry her. And now this marriage all fixed up. And the previous evening, so he talks to her and he learns that this is the girl which was my sister, who was lost some 18 years before. So the moment he discovers the fact, already she has been always a sister. But then that she is my sister, he doesn't know. But now the moment he discovers that she is my sister, his attitude towards her is completely changed. Born of what? Born of a recognition of a fact. The fact of his being a brother. So this he didn't know. Now the moment he knows, then thereafterwards, he will talk to her. The talk will be different. So he may embrace her. That is again entirely, the feelings are entirely different. And this the man is entirely changed in as much as his attitude has changed, for he has discovered a fact. Similarly, here is a fact. Karmani eva adhikaraha te ma paleshu kadachana. You have got only a right over your action. You have a choice over your action, never over the results. So if this fact is very clear to me, and the karma pala data means the one who gives the fruits of action is not me. Myself don't give the fruit of action. If I give the fruit of action, I will always be successful. There will be no failure at all. I will give all the fruits to myself, all that I want. Since I don't give the fruits of action to myself, that is why there is a failure, there is regret, everything is there. That is because there is some other factor. So that factor is called karma paladata. The one who gives the fruits of action, he is called the Ishvara, the Lord. If I recognize him, I can be a karma yogi. A secular karma yogi is not possible. He doesn't exist at all. A secular fellow will be a self-centered fellow, or he may be a simple social worker, but then he will have his qualms, he will have his problems also. But a karma yogi is one who is free from problems, for he recognizes him, and therefore the attitude is proper, an attitude that is born of recognition. And that attitude is not a false attitude, and it is something that is valid attitude, and hence it is possible for him to be a karma yogi. That karma yogi is told by Bhagavan as one who is dear to me, not the one who is dexterous in action, please. And the karma yogi will be dexterous in action. That is, the reverse is all right. The one who is dexterous in action need not be a karma yogi, but the one who has got this attitude will definitely be more inspired than anybody else, for he has no anxiety, he is always ready to accept the results, and therefore he is not tethered by what is going to come and things like that, since he has got a readiness, and therefore what is going to come, what is in store, that doesn't stifle the present action on his part. Therefore the mind is free, it is insulated against reaction, the attitude is the insulation, and hence that karma yogi will definitely be one whose actions will have a stamp of finish. So that finish will be there, an extra finish which you can't get out of a man who is anxious. Suppose I want to talk to you and I want to get your applause. I am all the time thinking about your applause. I am not going to really, my talk will be stifled by the applause that I am going to get or I am not going to get. So if I talk just for teaching, so if that teaching is only what I have in me, if that is the only thing that I want to communicate, and I have a love in communication, then every applause will naturally come. You don't work for it, please. The fellow who works for applause is a fellow, he will be applauded all right. Sometimes he may not be. If he doesn't get applauded, then he is finished. He is finished, for he can't again afterwards. He is finished, he can't even talk later. A music performance or any performance. The one who does his job inspiredly, that man alone can really find satisfaction in the work itself. And that is possible when he is not bothered about what is going to come. And he is not bothered, not that he doesn't know what is going to come, not that he doesn't expect what is going to come. But then what is going to come, he is ready to accept, even though he expects one thing. But when it comes, even if it is something the opposite of what he expected, but he is all readiness to accept it. And such a person is called a karma yogi. Please make a note. And again Bhagavan says, Mayicha ananya yogena bhaktiravya vicharini vibhikta desha sevitvam aratirjana samsadi. Mayi ananya yogena avyabhicharini bhakti. Mayi, Bhagavan says, the Lord says, here Krishna is looked at as a Lord. And therefore he says, so unto me means unto the Lord, Ananya Bhakti, Avyabhichari Bhakti, Ananya Yogena, Avyabhichari Bhakti, Avyabhicharini Bhakti, Bhakti Avyabhicharini. So, yes, Avyabhicharini means Sthira Bhakti, a steady devotion, not a spasmodic devotion. A devotion that you come under the bout of devotion now and then. Like a man, gets into a bout of fever, the devotion also you get into the bout of devotion and just for some time. So you feel where, suppose you go to the church and then you find that there is in the church, the priest is all solemn in his address, and when he does that, and he says something, when he reads something, you feel you are highly devoted. When you come out of it, everything is gone. So it is created. So there is a sort of an atmosphere is created, and then you feel everything is fine, the Lord is somewhere around you think, and then when you come away, the Lord is left behind, and he is there in the church, he doesn't come along with you, please. This is called bout of devotion. Or some people sing in ecstasy, and you also join those fellows, and you also find an ecstasy in yourself, which is not real. At that time, okay, real. It's a bout of devotion. And once the fellow is out, so the boat is gone, he's out of it. And thereafter you find he is just the same fellow. This is because there is no steady flame of devotion. And what is the steady flame of devotion? Mayi ananya yogena avyabhicharini bhakti. That the Lord is distinct from me, that I am going to meet him on one fine morning. So this notion definitely keeps you away from the Lord, because already you have put a distance and you don't see him anywhere, and therefore things that are seen will arrest your attention. The things that are not seen, they don't arrest your attention. Even things that are seen, all of them you don't think about all the time. Your parents, not that you think about them all the time. And therefore, now and then there are other things for you to think about. And this, even though you have got devotion for your parents or for your teacher, but then out of sight is out of mind. So this is the lot of a human mind. But whereas the Lord also is one out of sight. He is not available anywhere. And already we have decided he is in the heavens. And again, the doubting mind is always there. And that fellow will say, is there a heaven? First thing. Are there heavens? Number one. And is there a Lord? Number two. If he is the Lord, will I see him? Number three. With all my sins, am I going to see? The man, even though promises me, will I be able to see him? No. Even suppose I see him, if thousands and millions of people see him, what kind of darshan I will have of the Lord? And there will be, because, so my sight of him will be somewhere from a long distance. Perhaps I will see the Lord only as I see the stars. I will see the Lord sitting there. Of course, effulgent he will be. Therefore, I look at him perhaps as a star. If I am going to look at him as a star, better I have got so many stars to look at. And that is good enough. And well, so what I say, this is an intellectual. And that fellow everybody is intellectual now and then. And therefore, so this intellect will smart with such questions. And then how is he going to answer? And therefore, the Lord must be understood properly. That is why even to be a karma yogi, and Bhagavan says immediately, to be a karma yogi, the appreciation of the Lord is very important. And that requires knowledge. If a man knows the Lord completely, then he has nothing else to know. He knows the Lord as exactly what he is. That means naturally he is the one total nimitta upadana, abhinna nimitta upadana karanam. The one who is both nimitta, efficient cause, as well as the material cause. Being the material cause is not different from me. And he is the efficient cause, all right. And therefore he is the efficient cause and the material cause. And being the efficient cause, he is sarvajnaha, sarvashaktiman. I am only alpajnaha, alpashaktiman, no doubt. I am a limited man, I am a man of limitation, limited in knowledge, limited in my powers. He is a limitless in his powers. And the limitless power includes my limited power also. And it is not away from me. And therefore he is not away from me, he includes me. More than that, a man who appreciates, at least this much if he appreciates, that is enough for him, that is enough. He can't miss him at all. Therefore, so according to the Gita, you can never miss the Lord, for the breath that you are breathing in your nostrils is the Lord. If he is the upadana karana, the material cause, then all that is created is he. If all that is created is he, then the breath that is in my nostrils is he. That Vayu as a blessing, he is dancing in my nostrils. The life is dancing in me. There is life in me. That is because the breath is dancing in my nostrils. In the dance of breathing, is there the Lord. He is dancing. That is why the Lord is considered to be a great dancer, Nataraja. You must have seen that picture, must have seen that one leg is up, that Nataraja. So he is dancing all the time and dance in ecstasy, joy. So that is the Lord. And he is dancing with life all the time. The creation, new creation is all the time coming. So thus this spindle of time keeps moving. Even in the moving hands of time I can see him. In every, what is the thing that I can, that is away from the Lord? There is nothing that can be away from the Lord if the one who appreciates him as the nimitta, abhinna nimitta upadana karanam. He is the efficient cause and the material cause. That is why for a Hindu, a mountain is God, a river is God, a tree is God, everything is God. Some people say, so gods, how many gods you have got? Generally the criticism. Once, the Hindus have got many gods, it seems. They are the only fellows who say God and you are one. Not even many gods, how? They are the only fellows in the creation. They say that God and yourself are one and the same. They don't accept even God as different from you. Where is the question of that telling many gods? They don't say many gods. But then what about Rama, Krishna, Shiva, Ganapati, Ityadi? There are many gods. You all worship so many gods. That's a different thing. Anyway, once I was traveling in a train, that I tell you what it is later. Different thing means I'll tell you what it is. So when I was traveling in a train, there were 3 people in that compartment. I was sitting in one corner. In India, there is a lot of conversion work going on. And they collect here, and Europe they go and collect lots of money. And then they spend little money on these people, poor people, and then convert them. Conversion. This conversion work is going on. And they believe in it and they do it. Okay. They collect a lot of money. It seems in India people are all very poor and they don't eat at all. I don't look that I have never eaten. So the people don't eat at all. And they have got, they are all what is that, heathens and things like that. They don't have any religion. So they worship snakes, they worship all kinds of things. Like this, they come and do propaganda here. And now they collect a lot of money. And at least if this money is spent there on these people, I don't mind. There again, these fellows eat up. So they eat up the money and spend a small little moiety of it on the people and then convert them. So this conversion program is going on. The people think perhaps they are all people who have no religion or anything. So we should help them. Now, this is going on, and then in every corner you will find these people and then talking. The street corners, you will find them talking there. As I told you, you will be talking, one fellow will be talking in English, the other fellow will be translating in the regional language, and there will be no connection between what this fellow talks and the other fellow talks. It is a big joke in India, in fact. And this is the missionary work. Now, I'm very frank and plain. Nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong about Christ, nothing wrong about Bible. But I'm talking about this missionary conversion program. How do they work? Now, they believe in it. The problem is, they believe that unless you are converted, your soul is not going to be saved. There is a belief. The original sin cannot be washed off. The original sin is there. Adam touched the apple, that is the original sin. And therefore we are being born all the time. And God has been sending us every other day. And his business is to send people down. Because you don't accept that you yourself has got a beginning and end, and again you are the responsible for your own birth and all that. They don't accept. The theory of karma is not accepted. Rebirth is not accepted. And I'm talking of theology, please. Don't talk about anything else. Only theology, the official theology. So the official theology only I know. And therefore this official theology, catechism, so where these are the definite things, they believe in it. And therefore they think conversion is an important thing. Okay. So this man was sitting there, one gentleman, and he was reading a Gita book in Hindi. Another man was sitting in front of him, and I was sitting in this corner. 2 corners, and the 3rd corner, the 4th was vacant. So it was a 3rd class compartment. And fortunately it was vacant at the time. It was some reserved compartment, only with 3 fellows were there. Now it was a long journey. And from Delhi to Madras I was going, and it was more than 1,000 miles. And it takes its own time. The train takes its own sweet time. And then it goes. So yeah, some of the fellows who have traveled in India, they know what it is. But it's very cheap, dead cheap. Now, this fellow began talking to him. The other fellow asked him, what is it that you are reading? I was a brahmachari. Brahmachari means I was in white. I was just reading these things and all that, preparing. So I'm trying to know what it is all about. I didn't know much at the time. As I told you, sufficient enough to create problems for others. And now I was sitting there in one corner. And this other man asked him, what is it that you are reading? And he said, Gita. What is Gita? He said, it's a scripture. That much he could answer. And who gave the scripture? He says, Lord Krishna gave the scripture. Oh, Krishna is Lord for you. Yes, Krishna is God for us. Then what about Rama? He is also God. Then what about Shiva? He is also God. What about Vishnu? He is also God. Narayana and all that, that's also God. What about Ganesha, Ganapati and all that you say, Ganapati? That's also God. He is also God. I say, how many gods you will have? How many gods you will have? Well, we have got many gods. It doesn't know much, but and therefore he said, well, we have many gods and we have no problems anyway. And therefore he said, and neither the gods create any problem, it's all fine. Many gods we have got, we have no problem. Now, so when he asked, I say, how do you say that you have no problems? There should be some problems. Suppose, now, see, I tell you a story. He gave the problem. He told a story. It seems two fellows happened to meet when they were walking on a road. They were wayfarers and they were going somewhere. On the way, one fellow was a Christian, the other one was a Hindu. And both of them happened to cross a river. And when they were crossing the river was there was only some shallow water somewhere in one corner. It was flowing, there was not much of water. They crossed, it's a big wide river. And it was all sand. And then suddenly, so about more than a mile they had to walk. And suddenly the water was coming from, because of some rains above in the catchment area, the water was coming gushing. And now the fellows, they can't go back because water was coming all over. So they thought they will cross it. As they began crossing, the water went on increasing and both the fellows knew no swimming. And they were walking. And the water came up to the waist and then up to this, up to that, and then up to neck it came. And it is coming so fast. Both the fellows could not really keep their feet down, nor they could walk. And they are going to get drowned now. Naturally, so when your efforts, personal efforts are not going to pay any results, then you think of Bhagavan then alone. The Lord they thought of. Therefore what happened? This Hindu, what he said? So, oh Narayana, please come and save me, he said. Narayana came. As he was coming, this fellow said, oh Parameshwara, oh Shiva, where are you? Please save me. And Narayana thought, it is not for me the call. It is for Parameshwara, the Shiva, Lord Shiva. Therefore he went away. And then he told Shiva, somebody is calling you, you are sitting here, please go. And then Shiva was coming. By the time he said, oh Ganapati, hey Ganesha, where are you? Are you not the one who removes all obstacles and all that? So I am going on a pilgrimage. How come that you are not coming to me, oh Ganesha? Then Lord Shiva thought, it is not for me, it is for my son, I suppose. And then he went away. Ganesha is Lord's son. So our gods are all have got the family people. They have got wife, children, and all that. We are practical fellows, I tell you. So, and then again, so Ganesha, it is for Ganesha. It is not for me, he went away. He also went away. And then what happens? Ganesha was coming. And with all his big belly and all that, as he was coming, then what happened? Again, this fellow said, hey Krishna, he said. Ganesha thought, it is not for me, for Krishna, he said, he went away. By the time Krishna came to save this fellow, he got drowned. Whereas, see the whereas, he said, the other one said that, oh Jesus, save me. There came a log of wood floating in the river. He caught hold of the log of wood and crossed the river and let this fellow drown. That he didn't tell. I was listening to this story with great admiration. And from this corner. And he wanted me to drag me into the conversation. In fact, I was his catch. So he wanted to talk to me. His aim was at me, in fact. He was telling the story, now and then looking at me. I also told him that's correct. So I also nodded my head. Then afterwards, I asked, then he said, so you see what happened to this Hindu? He got drowned, found a watery grave. But whereas this man crossed, because he had only one God. Therefore he just called Jesus, he said, and immediately there is a log of wood and he crossed. Whereas it's a confusion for this fellow. So Narayana you say, Ganapati you say and all that. And therefore there's a confusion, he got drowned. And this fellow was already sitting in a corner. He felt cornered further. And he couldn't answer anything. Anyway, I don't understand this, but anyway, that's what my parents all do, therefore we do. And he was victorious. And he had a big smile. He might have told this story at least 25 times. And he was so victorious and he was very sure that he had won the whole conversation. He looked at me with the chest up and chin up and all that. And then I told him also, okay, sir, yes, that's an interesting story, I said. And then he came straight here. The other corner was vacant. He sat there. And then, yes, is it not? He said, is it not true? Yes, that is true. I had a small beard and things like that. And then he thought that I was some kind of a sadhu, he thought. And therefore, he wanted to engage me in a conversation. Then he said, yes, that is true, I said. He said, yes, that is true. Is it not? Yes, I think it's true. But I want to know, one thing I don't understand. So you tell me, in this drowning, when did this drowning take place? He was just wondering where I was driving at. Then I told him, don't bother. On a given Friday, at 10 a.m., it took place in India. Yes. Tell me, how many Christians are there in the world? Oh, we have got Christians all over the world. Okay. Now tell me, now at 10 a.m. on Friday, just listen to me, on Friday, one fellow got involved in a road accident and he is a good faithful Christian. He said, Jesus. Another woman was suffering from labor pain in a maternity hospital. And it was such a thing that she could not stand and all that. She said, Jesus, save me, she said. And another one, who was being attacked with a mobster in Harlem. And this is also, he's all 10 o'clock, exactly 10 o'clock, according to that time, all with the time difference and all that. So he's being attacked. And that fellow cries out, oh Jesus, save me. All are faithful Christians. Oh Jesus, save me. Now please tell me, to which place Jesus will go? 10 o'clock he has to go. To whom he will save? Jesus, suppose he has to save, where will he go? Whom he will save? Because he can't be partial. Being the Lord, the compassionate, he can't be partial. So he has to either go to all of them, which is not possible, because 10 o'clock he has to reach. So, and therefore, even if he has got wings, it will take some time, according to your story. And therefore, what happens? So, since he can't reach anybody, and all the three of them he can't reach simultaneously, he will be stay put in heaven. He can't move at all. Whereas, for us it is no problem. So if three fellows are like this in trouble, Ganesha will say, hey, Narayana, you go there. And Shiva, you go there. Don't think it is all logical. It is only just a disarming logic, this is called. We have got different types of logic. This is called a disarming logic. It has no logic. What I said is no logic. Because what he said has no logic. If the Lord Narayana were to save, it doesn't take time. If the Lord Jesus also were to save, he is not going to take time. You call the Lord Jesus, you call the Lord Narayana. If you are calling the Lord, that is fine. Your vision is of the Lord, it is fine. And therefore he is not going to take time. But he talks as though they are going to take time. He came and then went away, and another fellow came and went away and all that. If that is your concept, then here is the logic. And and therefore, there is only one law. And he is not different from me, in fact. He includes me. Essentially, in fact, he is myself. The water drop is indeed the ocean. There is no doubt about that. For the water drop is H2O and the ocean also is H2O. The water drop can say, I am the ocean, even though it is still recognized as a drop, a droplet. But then there is a difference in the sense one is total, the other is individual. Drop from the drop standpoint, not from the truth standpoint. Therefore, only one ocean is accepted. But at the same time, so being the Nimitta Karana in the expressions, I look at Ishvara from different standpoint. Only one president, but how many government offices are there? Please tell me. So similarly, there are many aspects in the creation, and in my own physical body, I can see, I can hear, I can smell. They are all governed by laws. Though these laws are all the Lord's laws. And I look at the Lord through one eye. Suppose I look at the Lord through the eyes which are capable of seeing. Then the Lord becomes a deity, a presiding deity of sight. So similarly, if I look at the Lord from the standpoint of ears, he becomes a presiding deity of hearing. So if I look at him, because that is also Lord. This law also is Lord. So any one thing, if I look at through a given aspect, the same Lord, that aspect alone is not the Lord. Even just as my finger is not the Lord, is not myself. So which is me, if you ask me, which part of me? I say all the parts myself. And therefore, the finger is a finger. But even though it belongs to one homogeneous anatomy, but finger is a finger. And the nose is a nose. And similarly, so I look at the Lord as a total whole, or I look at him through different aspects. If I look at him through the different aspect, again, it is the Lord that is worshipped through that particular aspect. Therefore, I look at him as Ganesha, as the creator, as a sustainer, as a destroyer, and in a sense as a resolver. So all the three functions belong to the Lord. And I get And similarly, so I look at the Lord as a total whole, or I look at him through different aspects. If I look at him through the different aspect, again, it is the Lord that is worshipped through that particular aspect. Therefore, I look at him as Ganesha, as the creator, as a sustainer, as a destroyer, and in a sense as a resolver. So all the three functions belong to the Lord. And again in the creation, in the sustenance, in the world that is sustained, I find there are any number of aspects, any number of laws. All of them bless me, and I look at the Lord through these laws, each one of them blessing me. Then he becomes a presiding deity called Deva, Deva, Deva. This is called Adhisthana Devata. These are all very clearly said. Therefore, we don't accept there are many gods, there is only one God. You look at the same Devata, same Lord, through different aspects, then he becomes a Devata. You worship the same Lord alone. And therefore, so the Hindus worship a lot of pantheon. Is that what is that? Pantheism. So it's a pantheism, it seems. So many gods are there. We don't accept many gods, there is only one. That one himself is not different from the individual. So essentially he is the same. That is why Tattvamasi is possible. That Lord, thou art, is the meaning of it. Thou art the Lord. That which is the cause for everything is indeed thou art. That is exactly the meaning of it. So how can I be the cause of everything? When the fellow begins to inquire, he discovers true that Lord also is nothing but the infinite, limitless. I am also nothing but limitless. Limitless plus me is not possible. Or me plus the limitless plus Lord also is not possible. Only one infinite is possible. That infinite is myself. And therefore, the one who recognizes, so this one Lord, and he is indeed the one, you can call him with any other name. That is why in India we have no problem. In the sense, So religious tolerance, they say Hindus are very much tolerant. I say it is very natural. Because suppose you have one more cross there. It doesn't matter at all. We have got so many of them. So one more cross, it doesn't make any difference to us. Okay, chalo, we have one. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter for us any way because that is very natural to us. You can call him Jesus, you can call him Father in heaven. It doesn't matter at all as long as you recognize him properly. So what is required is that recognition of the Lord. Who is that Lord? That must be very clear to us. So that is more important. And how do you call him? It is not that important to us. That is why we have got many number of names. And in fact, we call the Lord Ishta Devata. I tell you, Ishta Devata. In worship, we say Ishta Devata means you choose your own form of worship. If you think the other fellow's nose reminds me of the Lord much more than any other thing, all right, you meditate upon the other fellow's nose if you don't get punched on your nose. I don't mind. Is nothing wrong. Suppose you say, this I worship. Suppose you think, so this nose is so shapely nose. I see the Lord is there, very much there. He has done a lot of work there. And therefore, this nose I am going to worship. You do offer flowers to that nose. Achyudaya Namaha, Anantaya Namaha. Like this we offer worship. So you offer worship to him. That's fine. If he allows, and if he also sits there and you offer, it's fine. That is why gurus are all worshipped in India. They worship means how they worship. They worship just like they worship the Lord. They offer flowers to him, they wave candles before him, the camphor before all this light and things like that. They prostrate, everything they do. They don't look upon him differently. Because if he can reveal me the vision of Lord, and he is not going to be different from that Lord. And therefore, so they worship the Guru as good as the Lord. In fact, they worship much more. If there was a choice between, do you want God or you want Guru? And the fellow will prefer Guru because if God comes, I am yet to know him and he has to be a Guru anyway. Or some other Guru I have to require. And then who has to tell? And I have to ask him, who is that fellow, that guy who came there the other day? And who was he? I say, he is God. Somebody has to come and tell me. Or he has to tell. And the telling is not enough, it should be revealed completely. And therefore there is a verse in Punjabi verse in Punjab, between Guru and Govinda, if there is a choice, I would prefer the Guru, not Govinda. I will say Govinda. And I want the Guru. Why? Because, well, that he will reveal me the Govinda. Govinda will come and have a cup of coffee before me, but I won't recognize him if that vision is not given to me. And therefore, that a man is worshipped. That is fine. What I say, you can worship any blessed thing. You can just take a stone. In India, for worship, we don't require any object at all. Anything, what they do when they do offer worship, so suppose there is a puja done. Puja means worship is done. The first thing is the Lord who removes all obstacles, and he is first worshipped. He is praised. So that this very worship itself will become successful. So you invoke the Lord. He is called Ganesha Ganapati. Ga-yi-ye, that I was singing, the other day. Ga-yi-ye Ganapati. First song is Ganapati always. Ga-yi-ye Ganapati. So Ganesha. Because he is the one who removes all obstacles. Okay. So they worship him. How do they worship him? Now, the lady of the house is told, please go and bring this turmeric powder. You know turmeric? Yellow powder, turmeric powder. You may not know haldi, it is called turmeric powder, yellow powder. And she is using it for cooking. So she uses in all those dal and things like that when she prepares a lot of things, in vegetables and all that, they throw a little of this. So she is keeping it there in a small little bottle. And then she brings from that bottle a spoonful of this powder. And then what this man who is going to do puja, what he does, he takes that powder, mixes it with water, makes a lump of it, and puts it there on a leaf. And then he says, so asmin bimbe mahaganapatim avahayami. He says, in this lump of this particular figure, so in this lump, I asmin bimbe, in this object, mahaganapatim avahayami. That Lord who is the remover of all obstacles, I am invoking him, he says first. And after having invoked him, then he does puja to the Lord. Please tell me, is he worshipping the turmeric powder lump, or is worshipping the Mahaganapati? He is not worshipping the turmeric powder, because, so if the turmeric powder is worshipped, then anywhere turmeric powder is there, he should worship. He doesn't do that. Only when it is brought there and he says, so in this I see Mahaganapati, I invoke the Lord Ganapati, then he worships that. Therefore he is not worshipping idol. He is worshipping the Lord that he sees there. And then the worshiping, after the worship is over, you can't again take it for cooking, because you will be boiling Bhagavan. And therefore, they won't use it again. You ask, there are Hindus here, none of them, what all I say is all a fact. You ask them. They can't again use it. It's impossible. What I say, you don't worship exactly the cross, in fact. It is not, if a cross is exactly the worship, then anywhere a telephone pole is there, then it is a cross standing everywhere. So you worship, so on that you see something. So that you worship, in fact. It is not exactly an object is worshipped. So you worship something else. Nobody is an idolater. Everybody worships some other person and idolatry, because idol nobody will worship. Idol he will keep it there. Oh, it's a nice figure. He'll put it there in a drawing room. But in that figure, if he finds the Lord, so it is an object of worship for me, then he creates an altar for it. Then he worships the Lord whom he sees in that idol, and because he wants something so that he can think of the Lord. Because he is not that devotee, for whom everything is the Lord, that is not, vision is not clear to him. Therefore he wants something in which that Lord whom he has visualized, he just sees in that idol and worships that Lord. And the answer is from the Lord, not from the idol. If there is any answer to his prayers, it is from the Lord. So this is a place where he can direct his mind and direct all his various steps of worship that he wants to offer. All that can be directed there, because there is an altar. Therefore, in fact, I tell you, everybody is an idolater. You discovered something. You were awarded. And your friend comes and congratulates you. The discovery of your intellect. You have achieved something. When he wants to congratulate you, and then what does he do? He comes and shakes your hands. Why? He should in fact shake the intellect. It is intellect that discovered. But what is immediately available is only the hand. He grabbed that and then shook you completely. You are an idolater, please. When you want to pat that fellow, you only pat not the mind, what he did for his nice emotions, for his sympathy, for his compassion. You want to pat him, you did a good job. And where do you pat? On the mind. On the mind means you must do some neurosurgery. And again, whether it is mind or not, you are going to pat, you are patting on his back. It is not the back of the body was compassionate that you are patting it. This back was very good. Who is not an idolater? The body is an idol for that man who is wielding it. Therefore, everybody is an idolater, I tell you. And when you are looking at this body, all the time in the mirror, in fact, you are an idolater. You are looking at something inside. That is the one that you are looking at, in fact. And because you love yourself, that self you are looking at, in fact, not this physical body. The love is for your ananda. And that you look at, and you don't know which is that, therefore it looks as though you love this body. In fact, you love much more. When it is a question of body, or it is a question of sometimes whether am I to live, or am I to live for my conviction, or not. If that is a question. If the man really has got some kind of ideal or conviction, he will give up the body. If it is a limb I have to lose, or the eyes I have to lose, he will say, I don't mind I lose my hand, save my eyes. Do you want to lose your eyes or you want to lose your mind? Please, your choice is given to you. Do you want to lose your eyes or you want to lose your mind? Which of them you will choose? I don't mind, sir. If that is a choice, I don't want to lose my eyes. But if you think that I have to lose my eyes, then all right, I would rather prefer to lose my eyes, but not my mind, please. What is the use of having pair of eyes with a mind that is insane behind? And therefore the love is always towards ourselves, more and more deeper in yourself. That is the real love. Anyway, what I say that everyone is an idolater in fact. So this worship and all that this man does in a particular idol. Why? Because he is not able to see the Lord. In anything that is there, if he has got that vision, he doesn't require any particular idol, please. And because his physical body itself is the greatest idol of the Lord, that is why he decorates also this physical body. And this body or any other object also, the vayu, the oxygen in my nostrils also is the Lord, which is not the Lord. Therefore, you will find the Hindus worship everything. They will worship a tree, an Ashwatha tree. Any banyan tree, they will go around. And then if there is a river, it's a sacred thing. The ocean is a sacred thing. The mountain, sacred thing. A cow, a sacred thing. Women, sacred. And so this, like this, all there are, from all, I would say, the levels, like minerals, if you take from the mineral kingdom, from the plant kingdom, from the human kingdom, animal kingdom, you will find at least some representative, the idols of worship. Idols are alive, they are all alive. The Himalayas are abode of worship. The people worship as a big temple. The whole Himalaya itself is a temple. If there is a beautiful peak, and the peak, if it is like a linga, they will say it is the Lord. This is another problem. Hindus worship phallus. Phallus they worship. This is another thing. All right, if they worship, so what? He looked upon as a creator. And which it is not correct. That is not phallus they worship. What they worship is the Lord Ishvara. Because if he is all forms, please tell me, if the Lord is all forms, and you want to give him a form which will include all forms, what should be the form? What should be the form? It should be like that. All noses, all ears are to be brought together like out of a wax ball. I make million dolls. If all of them are brought together, there will be no particular form will be there. They are all properly shaped, all are brought together. They will become one linga, please. It is not phallus. So the very name linga means lingyate anena iti lingam. By this I appreciate something, that is called lingam. By what you appreciate something, lingyate buddhyate anena iti lingam. Something is appreciated by this. And what is appreciated? The Lord is appreciated by this. Therefore I worship the Lord. The lingam stands for all forms, not phallus. And therefore, so this since he doesn't have that vision, man is, even though he is given the vision, he is apt to forget. He will take things for granted. The preoccupations of things and his concerns are so much that he is not going to see, even in vayu, in air, in water, in trees, and all that, he is not going to see the Lord. And therefore, he may worship. But Bhagavan says, that flame of wisdom, if it is really flame of devotion, if he recognizes me as the upadana karana, it should be something, he says, ananya yogena, that the Lord is not different from me. He is not different from anything. I am included in the Lord's form. There is no my form at all. It is Lord's form, in fact. And therefore it is not my form. It is not this form and every other form, it is his form. And this is called devotion. And this we are not able to get it, and therefore we say, oh Lord, I want devotion. You have to pray. I threaten the Lord, as I said yesterday. Oh Lord, tanu manu dhanu sab. I give you my body, I give you my wealth, I give you my mind. And again next day you say, I give you my body and all that. That is because the surrender is not something that is an act. Like even knowledge is not an action. Surrender also is not an action. It is a thing that is again, the Lord is already included in me, and therefore I have to recognize the fact. Surrender also is just, it takes place. In the wake of a knowledge, it takes place. Surrender is not an action, as love is not an action. You love a person means it happens. That is why if anybody asks you, please love me, you can't do anything about it. Somebody asks you, from tomorrow onwards you must love me. I say, love, I am talking. It is not making love. It is love. As such, you can't ask a fellow, please love me from tomorrow onwards. He will say, I will try, which is also meaningless. Which is also meaningless because he can only grant a certain condition within himself where love can be discovered. He can love, of course, if he knows how to love. How to discover love in him. One fellow came and asked me, Swamiji, how to develop love? It's a very big question. So Swamiji, please tell me how to develop love. I want to develop love. How to develop love? I told him, do one thing, I said. He was very happy because we are all action oriented, you know. Do one thing means ready to do. Come on, please tell me. I will do that. So that I will develop love. Do one thing. So I should have put him on a trip, but I am not, generally I don't do that. And therefore, I told him one thing. I say, do one thing. What? Love. Just love. There is no other way. To develop love is to love. How to win friends and influence people? How to win friends? Please tell me how to win friends. By smiling. By talking convenient talks. By confirming his opinion. Nonsense. It is how to be a hypocrite. And when the other fellow says something, and if you find that you are not interested in the topic, but if he has got interest in the topic, but then you show as though you have got interest in the topic. Not to hurt a man is one thing. But that is not winning friends. I say to win friend is to be friendly. There is no other way. There is no other way. I tell you, there is no other way. You have to be